A modern hospital for the poorest of the poor in Peru. No one thought it would be possible. However, through their faith in God, the German couple Klaus and Martina Jorn set out in January 2002 to realize their vision. Thousands of miles from home, they continue to experience countless extraordinary miracles and unexplained events. This is the incredible story of Diospi Suyana.
This 13-year-old boy has fallen off a horse and has broken his collarbone as well as the bone in his forearm. We've made him an arm splint to keep everything in place, and in the morning we'll have another look at the x-rays. You learn something new all the time, and that's one of the main advantages of working at a missionary hospital. You get to expand your horizons.
For me, Diospi Suyana is an incredible project that was only made possible through the miraculous intervention of God.
Expressing compassion through the provision of medical care, that's what we're about.
We want to heal people and relieve their suffering and to treat people with dignity so that they know that Jesus loves them. We also want to express our faith in a practical and vulnerable way in order to demonstrate that our faith is real.
Diospi Suyana for me is hope. It's all about trusting God.
We began with only a vision and a prayer. What then happened doesn't lend itself to logical explanation.
This project is a work of God. It's a miracle, something very special.
It's 8:30 in the morning in Coruasi, and the day begins at Diospi Suyana. Inspired by a desperate hope of healing, the people crowd around the hospital. They come from far and wide. Most travel by bus, some by taxi, others arrive on foot or on their donkeys. Some even spend the night outside the entrance to the hospital. No distance is too far and no effort spared to make the arduous journey. The sad fact is that in the Andean Apurimac region, healthcare provision is catastrophically inadequate. The situation is desperate. It seems that there is no hope. Thomas is 11 years old. He's been suffering from epilepsy for many years. His parents can't afford the treatment in Lima or the expensive medication that he needs. But now there's a hospital within reach. Thomas and his family have new hope.
Before, we didn't know what to do or where to go. We took him to Cusco and even to Lima, but there was no hope for us. But now, thank God, there's this hospital, Diospi Suyana.
The hospital that has become a beacon of hope for so many people is situated on the edge of town of Coruasi, 2,650 meters above sea level, in the middle of the Peruvian highlands. 30,000 people live in this remote town and in the villages surrounded by the mountains. Most of the inhabitants of this region are Quechua Indians who are descended from the legendary Incas. They live a rustic existence in simple huts made of mud and clay. They manufacture their own building materials. Mud bricks are used to build small huts and simple dwellings. There are few who can afford such luxuries as windows and doors. Sanitary facilities are rare or non-existent.
A small house to live in, built from mud brick. We can't afford a cement house, so we just make do with what we have.
Cotahuasi is considered to be the world capital of aniseed. A Peruvian farm worker earns about 10 nuevos soles a day, around $4. The weekly Sunday market in the town. Here, people cater for their basic needs. Fresh meat is on offer, but the hygiene standards are not the same as we are used to. You also need to be wary of all the pesticides in fruit and vegetables. There's no legislation banning the use of insecticides. Things get even worse when you look at the drinking water. The muddy water flows only for a few hours a day through dirty channels in the ground. The water is infested with parasites and worm eggs. In Cotahuasi, only the main roads are paved. The streets and side roads are built out of rubble and debris, forming a desolate playground, a monument to the sense of hopelessness that pervades this area. This is a view of the medical center in the region. It's not only falling apart, but has even had to close. It turns out that the nurse, who might otherwise at least be able to offer basic emergency help, has no medicine and is herself suffering from stomach cramps. The ratio comparison makes the situation clear. There are about 4 doctors for every 10,000 people. In the United States, there are 30. The nearest public hospital is located 50 miles away in Abancay, about 2 hours on the bus. However, many of the Quechua people can't afford the treatments and medication that are offered there.
70% of Peruvians are dependent on a healthcare system that does not function well at all. We're always grateful for organizations that take the situation seriously and are able to offer us real help, as in the case of Diospi Suyana.
The seriousness with which Diospi Suyana takes the situation is apparent the moment the patient sets foot in the hospital. In contrast to Peruvian custom, the employees at the hospital are sincere and open about their faith, each ready to listen with a sympathetic ear. A whole team takes good care of the patients as they wait. In the consultation, important information about the patient is taken by paramedics. Height, weight, blood pressure and body temperature, everything is noted in the medical record. A doctor makes a diagnosis and then decides how to help the patient.
I think mostly it's a lot of the people when they come in here, their diseases are a little more advanced. Also, they hear about the hospital, and so they have oftentimes more complicated diseases that I wouldn't normally treat in the United States.
In Germany,
I'm used to operating on patients with the aim of healing or curing them. Whereas over here, the aim of many operations I do is mainly palliative. In many cases, the patients arrive too late.
Adequate health care is not something that the Quechua Indians can take for granted. Put simply, medicine costs money, and money is something that they just don't have. To break this cycle and to offer some hope to the poorest people of Peru has become the life work of the German husband and wife team of Klaus and Martina Jon from Wiesbaden. The Jon family are Martina, Florian, Dominic, Cappuccino the cat, Natalie, and Klaus. Their home is situated in the middle of Cotahuasi. The family is already well accustomed to life in South America. From 1998 to 2003, Martina and Klaus worked as missionary doctors at a hospital in Ecuador. In October 2003, they moved to Cotahuasi in Peru.
When we arrived here, I was totally shocked by the poverty. You have to see it as it really is. Poverty is ugly. There's nothing beautiful about poverty. And so we arrived here from Ecuador with all our luggage, and then we moved into this house and spent the first 3 months sleeping on mattresses. Sometimes there would be water, at other times there would be no water. We brushed our teeth with water from the tank in the yard outside. It was a real adventure.
Just renovating the house took 10 months. Now the Jons live in quite modern conditions, at least by Cotahuasi standards. Florian, Dominic and Natalie attend the local school, have friends and are fully integrated. The family has adapted well. The Jons draw strength from their faith in God. This assurance gives them the energy and perseverance that they need. Martina, the pediatrician, and her husband Klaus, the surgeon, and all their colleagues need this energy every day, Only by faith and trusting God was it possible to realize the vision of a hospital for the poorest people of Peru.
This kind of vision can only emerge over the course of several years. We both studied medicine, but even while we were still teenagers, we both knew that we wanted to go and work in a developing country in order to use our knowledge to help people in situations where it's really needed. And so we spent 5 years in Ecuador, and while we were there, the idea of building a modern hospital began to occur to us. We learned so much about South American culture, particularly the culture of the Quechua, who are descendants of the Incas. So what began as a dream became more and more real over time.
Mehr und mehr Realität.
Reality at Diospi Suyana means helping the poorest of people with the most modern medicine. But there's more to it than that. It's about hope, compassion, and above all, dignity. For the descendants of the Incas, a dignified life in their homeland is more of a dream than a reality. In a country where the living conditions tend to be extremely difficult, the Quechuas are usually even worse off than most and are treated as second-class citizens. This isn't the case with Diospi Suyana.
This morning in the clinic, I spoke with the mother of an 8-month-old baby. The child is very behind in its development. The woman knows this because it is her 4th child. She had already visited 2 clinics, but they didn't tell her anything about her child's condition. She hadn't received any paperwork or diagnosis, absolutely nothing. And that makes people dissatisfied. So when we try to explain to the patients the reasons why we conduct certain tests and precisely how we want to help them to get well, they respond with understanding and gratitude, even in those cases when there's not a lot we can do to help cure them.
There's no such thing as a typical day for me, because every day is unique, and each day presents its own challenges. You never know what to expect, so every day is an interesting and exciting experience.
Sehr, sehr spannend und interessant.
This is a terrific hospital, especially for us Peruvians. We have confidence in this hospital because everyone here is a Christian.
Son cristianos.
At the start, there was nothing here but empty walls. We hammered in every nail ourselves and built these rooms with our own hands. I've trained the people who work here, and together we've watched as the project's developed. On the one hand, it's quite daunting to have been given so much responsibility, but then again, it's also really exciting.
Since October 2007, the hospital has played an important role in the medical care of the poor people in the Peruvian highlands. However, before the hospital could be set up, the Yons had to overcome many formidable obstacles. In their project proposal in the spring of 2002, the Yons unveiled their plan to build and furnish a multi-million-dollar hospital equipped with all the latest medical technology. They need to gain the support of about 1,000 regular donors as well as 35 volunteers to work at the hospital. Many who heard Klaus and Martina's vision at the time were impressed, but skeptical. It seemed impossible. In August 2002, they set up a support team with 8 colleagues. Olaf Böttger assumed the responsibilities of chairman and became the 3rd pillar of the project. His task was to coordinate the logistics and manage the donations. The sponsoring organization shares its name with the hospital, Diospi Suyana.
We thought up the name Diospi Suyana with the help of linguists and pastors from Peru. Diospi Suyana is an expression from the Quechua tongue which is derived from the language of the ancient Incas, and it means we trust in God, but can also mean God is waiting for you.
The first task was to find a suitable location for the construction of the hospital. The choice fell on Peru, the 3rd largest country in South America. 30 million people live in this Andean country, including 8 million in the capital city of Lima. 40% of the population are descended from the legendary Inca civilization that ruled between the 13th and 16th centuries and reigned over much of the South American continent. However, the high level of gold deposits lured the colonial powers from Europe to the New World. 1535 saw a new era of colonial rule under the Spanish Empire. The influence of this cultural intrusion continues and is still visible. The official language is Spanish. Approximately 30% of the population speak Quechua, which is derived from the ancient Inca language. In the religious life of Peru, the Spaniards have left their mark. 88% of Peru's population is Catholic, about 12% is Protestant. The Indians lived mostly in the mountainous regions of Peru, around the former Inca capital of Cusco. This region is also home to Machu Picchu, one of the new 7 wonders of the world. Here in the Andean regions of Ayacucho and Apurimac, poverty blights the lives of many people. Alcoholism plays a decisive role in the prevailing sense of hopelessness that shatters the lives of the local population. 500,000 Quechua Indians live here under unimaginable conditions. A hospital for the poor did not exist before. Here on the outskirts of Cotopaxi, on an area of 35,000 square meters, a modern hospital based on the European model is to be built. The plans envisage the establishment of 4 operating rooms, a modern radiology department, and an intensive care unit. In addition, there will be an emergency room, a clinic, a dental practice, a laboratory, and a large ward. Every year, up to 50,000 patients will be treated here. At the center of the hospital will be a large, bright church. The cross will be the symbol of the faith that has inspired the vision to build this hospital of hope. The news that Europeans are coming to provide the Quechua Indians with modern medical care hits the region like a bombshell. The main news agency in Peru shows several features on this incredible project on its primetime broadcasts.
We chose to give this such widespread coverage to criticize the Peruvian authorities for their failure to realize such a project, not because of the money, but because no one cares about this forgotten region.
The residents of Cotopaxi can hardly believe their luck. The ceremony to mark the laying of the foundation stone gives expression to their hope for a better future. On the poster, the words are written, "Diospi Suyana is a gift of God for Cotopaxi." The fact that the Europeans have come to Peru to build a hospital, however, breeds skepticism among some. The rumors begin to spread.
Well, I have to admit that at first I had serious doubts about the whole thing. But now I'm really glad that the hospital is being built. I've even been helping out with the construction work myself.
Lots of people said that this hospital would only be for the rich, but that wasn't true. I thank God, for this hospital is also for the poor people of this country. So many people couldn't afford treatment, and so they used to die of their illnesses, but now they can be treated.
Before the German ambassador can give the go-ahead for the construction of the hospital on 24th of May 2005, a lot of persuasive work needs to be done. During several extensive lecture tours throughout Europe and North and South America, the Yons present their project and set out their vision. They speak in churches, clubs, schools and companies. Since 2004, they've given nearly 2,000 presentations worldwide. In Europe alone, the Yons have clocked up 200,000 miles on the road. To realize such a large-scale project in a third world country, you need to rely heavily on people who are willing to work on site for long periods. Above all, the Yons need a civil engineer who could work abroad and would be willing to live and work for 2 years in Peru without receiving any salary. Many miracles have contributed to the realization of the Diospi Suyana vision, which lends the project a fascinating dimension. One of these miracles occurs in the spring of 2005, when Klaus arrives in Germany with his lawyer to discuss the construction contracts.
As I was talking with my lawyer about the need for an engineer to oversee the construction, he mentioned that he was a member of a Christian initiative, and one of his fellow members used to work for the construction company Philipp Holzmann. So I asked him, what's his name? He said, Udo Clemens. So I asked him, you don't happen to have his number, do you? Then he reached into his briefcase and pulled out the telephone number.
I think it was about 10 in the morning, and I remember hearing the telephone. I answered, and on the other end of the line was a certain Dr. Jung, and he told me that his name was Klaus and that he was a doctor from Wiesbaden.
I went straight to the point. Would you be able to work as a volunteer to oversee the construction of this hospital for 1 or 2 years?
And so I said, yeah, I think so, why not? Count me in.
So I said, let's talk about the details together. I was staying about an hour's drive from Udo's house at the time, so I said I'd come to meet him. So I turned up at the house that same evening and explained the project to Udo and his wife Barbara. When I'd finished, she said to me, Mr. John, I need to tell you something. My husband and I are committed Christians. For 3 days, Udo and I have been praying about whether there is still another great project for us to do, if God has perhaps prepared a special task for us to complete or a vision to realize. We've been thinking about that for 3 days, and this morning we were sitting and praying about this in our kitchen, and precisely in this moment, the telephone rang, and you asked us to be involved in this project. That can't be a coincidence.
After I'd received the telephone call, it was clear to both of us that this was God's call on our lives. So we'd really already decided as soon as I'd agreed on the telephone. And after Klaus unveiled the details of the project the same evening, it became even clearer to us that we should be involved in building the hospital.
Barbara and Udo flew with us to Peru on the 3rd of August 2005. Since that time, Udo has been working 8 hours a day overseeing the building work. He has 30 years' experience of working as a construction engineer, including 13 years spent in third world countries. He's supervised the construction of large-scale building projects, such as stadiums and harbors. He put his heart and soul into the work with us, and most of all, he does all the work on a completely voluntary basis.
The construction of the hospital is progressing well. Over 100 Peruvian builders work every day on the site. Next to the hospital is an amphitheater. Diospi Suyana would also become a cultural center in Coruasi, offering entertainment and recreation for the local people. But to build the hospital and the arena, one thing is missing: cement. And then, once again, a miracle happens.
Suddenly there appeared a lorry with a load of 600 sacks of cement worth $5,000, but we didn't know where it had come from. So we asked the driver, and he told us that he'd been sent by the owner of a mining company whose name was Guido de Castillo. And so we called him and said that we're speechless and that we were so grateful because that's precisely what we needed. We asked him why he had helped us, and he told us that he'd read about the construction of the hospital in a newspaper article. And then he said, "That's not all. We want to help you some more." And then he told us that he would supply us with $50,000 worth of steel that we needed in order to build the roof.
We saw Dr. Klaus on stress because he was building the hospital. But rains were coming and there's no roof. So he never went into his knees, but he convinced us to help him, and I guess we helped him to put the roof up.
Guido Castillo had a particular reason for wanting to help us. He's a wealthy businessman with an affluent lifestyle, but then a family tragedy occurred which caused him to think hard about what was really important in life. And since that time, he's become a trusted and valued friend who has helped our work in many ways. One morning, he called me and asked me if there was anything else that we needed. I said that we needed to order the roof panels, the false ceilings. He asked how much it would cost. I told him $20,000. He paid it all.
Nobody is helping the people on the mountains, and this is a very isolated, very poor area. And this man is incredible, coming from Germany, from Europe, and doing this incredible work.
We've realized more and more that whether we're dealing with a private person or a corporation, the decision to help us doesn't depend on the size of the bank account. I've spoken to millionaires who didn't give a penny. It comes down to a matter of the heart. If people are moved and say, it's a great project and I'd really like to support it. But in other cases, the money that people have is sometimes more important to them.
But the true foundation of Diospi Suyana is not made of concrete and steel. Rather, this project is built on the beliefs and hopes of those involved in the construction work.
It's about showing people that it's possible to lead a different kind of lifestyle, and that the rich are not always the bad guys, but that everyone can help each other and people can learn to live with trust in God in relation to their illnesses and in the course of their daily lives.
For me, it's a great gift to be able to work here. I spent many years working in industry, working mainly for the benefit of the rich and powerful. But I always wanted to work for the benefit of people who live in poverty.
I'm
here to help others. What I like about it here is that I can help people directly, whereas in Germany I could only really help people indirectly, perhaps by making donations. It's also an incredible life experience to live and work here.
We sent out an appeal to say that we needed 35 trained nurses and doctors who would be prepared to give up their work and salaries in their home countries to build up a support network and then to move here with their entire family in order to begin a new phase in their lives. Those who responded to the appeal did so out of the conviction that God loves every human being, and they see it as their calling to express this compassion to other people more through deeds than words. We found that we don't actually need to say too much explicitly about our faith. The people understand the gospel message more through what we do rather than what we say.
The opening of this Hospital of Faith, Diospi Suyana, on the 31st of August 2007 is broadcast on Peruvian national radio and TV stations. On this day, after 2 years of construction, the mission hospital is inaugurated in Cotahuasi. People flock to witness the opening ceremony. For them, the hospital is a symbol of hope for a better future. The amphitheatre is packed to capacity with more than 4,000 people. There's a carnival atmosphere. Regional dignitaries and government officials are also present. In his opening speech, Klaus John sets out the vision and purpose of the hospital.
This is a hospital of faith. This hospital is a stretched out hand of friendship. This hospital is a model of integration of compassion and faith. The message of Diospi Suyana is that God of all time is still alive in the 21st century.
The main guest of honor on this day is Pilar Nores de Garcia, the wife of the former Peruvian president. She is the patron of Diospi Suyana and appreciates the importance of this mission.
I believe that today is a day of double thanksgiving. First, for the building material, but also for the spiritual monument of hope that this German couple has constructed. These two doctors have made the decision to dedicate their lives to the health and welfare of all the residents of Cotahuasi, and the entire region will benefit from their amazing work.
Pilar Nores de Garcia has the honor of cutting the red ribbon at the opening of the hospital. handing over the fate of the hospital to the team of workers and volunteers. The former First Lady of Peru is given a tour of the hospital. Accompanied by several journalists and news reporters, she sees firsthand the opportunities offered by the hospital. She has clearly caught the vision of Diospi Suyana.
It just makes an incredible impression on me. The entrance is impressive in its height, and the cross means so much to me as a Christian. Then the whole array of modern technology that I saw as I was walking through the hospital just left me speechless.
Palabras mayores.
Since its opening in 2007, the hospital has constantly expanded. Now it's one of the most advanced medical facilities in Peru. The hospital is equipped with a modern ambulance that can be called out to deal with emergencies. A helicopter landing pad also facilitates the transport of critically ill patients. In addition to the hospital, a modern dental clinic has also been built, which brings much-needed dental care to the residents of the Andes. An eye clinic is also housed in the Diospi Suyana complex. By July 2014, these two clinics had already treated more than 17,000 patients. The Hospital of Faith is a hive of activity around the clock. Many are healed, getting a new lease of life. The long-term plan is to expand operations even further, so that up to 100,000 patients will be treated here every year. Treatment at Diospi Suyana is generally not free. People should be aware that health is a value that must be cherished and preserved. In addition, the people here are part of the Peruvian healthcare system, and this system must not be undercut by free private medical care. A consultation visit costs 4 nuevos soles, which is just over $1. If prescribed medication or even surgery is necessary, the doctor will consult with a social worker to determine how much a patient can pay. The residual amount is paid by the charity fund Diospi Suyana. The support to the Quechua people that comes from all over the world is used in very practical ways to help those people who cannot afford to pay for their treatment.
I'm just about to see an adult patient who for 4 years has been suffering from a severe skin disease. She was sitting in a wheelchair because she couldn't move, because all of her skin was swollen and infected with bacteria. But now, after having received treatment, she's doing much better and might even be able to go home this weekend.
Denn am Wochenende darf sie wahrscheinlich nach Hause.
Buenos días. ¿Cómo está? ¿Estás bien?
No one really knows how she became so ill, but we knew that we had to take good care of her, so we ordered several special lotions from the pharmaceutical companies. When she arrived, it seemed as though she'd been entombed by the disease like a plate of armor. But now she can move normally and has developed a huge appetite, and she's making a good recovery. So now we can give her some cream and vitamins and let her leave the hospital.
Every aspect of the hospital is permeated by faith in God. Every morning in the hospital chapel, there is a time of prayer and worship. Sitting side by side with the patients, the doctors and nurses pray that God will bless their day. This heartfelt faith brings people together. The sense of mutual respect and the common hope have borne great fruit in Coruasi. Several home groups have emerged, where missionary workers meet with their Peruvian counterparts. Many employees are involved in the various churches in town. They live, pray and worship hand in hand on an equal footing with their Peruvian brothers and sisters. The changes that have occurred in Cotahuasi are plain to see. The local economy has been boosted. The patients and their relatives, who now come from all over the country to visit the hospital, often stay overnight in local hotels. Several smaller restaurants have opened in the town. The taxi drivers in the region are particularly pleased with the dramatic increase in passengers. These developments are closely linked with Diospi Suyana.
I believe that the construction of Diospi Suyana has provided an impetus for a series of positive developments in the region. As a result of the increase in construction work, many more people have work and receive a regular salary, and so they have the opportunity to improve their own living conditions and perhaps even to help their partners to establish a new business.
Until a few years ago, many things in Cotahuasi would have been unthinkable. For example, the road conditions have improved considerably. Where previously there were gravel tracks running through the village, there are now many concrete roads. And for the first time, modern means of communication such as mobile phones and the internet have been introduced into this part of the Peruvian highlands. Until recently, the people of Cotahuasi had to rely upon 9 extremely unreliable public phones to communicate with the outside world. Not the best conditions for coordinating a multi-million-dollar construction project. Klaus went to Lima to try and persuade the largest Peruvian telecommunications company, Telefónica Peru, to set up a telephone and internet connection for the hospital. Despite all his persuasive appeals to 3 company executives in the autumn of 2005, Klaus's efforts were in vain. Telefónica deemed this investment too high and too risky. Shortly before Christmas, Klaus then encountered another setback. He just returned to Peru after a lecture tour of Germany.
At midnight at Lima Airport, I was detained by customs officials and they confiscated my projector, simply because I'd forgotten to cross a section in my declaration form. For 7 weeks, with the help of the German embassy, we tried in vain to get this vital piece of equipment back. So I had to buy a new projector. I went to the shop and tried out a few projectors by connecting them to my laptop and displaying all the photos of Diospi Suyana.
I happened by chance to be in the same room, and I was also chasing a very short deadline. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been there. Without Klaus noticing, I also had the opportunity to see the presentation, which he gave in order to test the projector. The presentation seized my attention, and I was immediately captured.
And then a man standing behind me asked me if he had understood correctly that the Telefónica didn't want to help me. I said that was right, and that I'd received a rejection 3 days earlier. Then this man said to me,
I happen to work at a phone company, and I believe that we might be able to help you. So I asked Klaus to visit me in my office to discuss the details.
As a result, the telecommunications company IMSAT donated the satellite dish with 30 internet connections and 6 international telephone lines. The total sum of the donation amounted to $250,000.
I still can't fully comprehend all the coincidences that led to these events occurring as they did. It was such an incredible conspiracy of circumstances that introduced me to Klaus and gave me the opportunity to support him.
All donations go straight to Diospi Suyana. Through this direct support, Diospi Suyana was able to become one of the most modern and best equipped hospitals in Peru. Companies from around the world helped with generous donations of money and materials. Firms that gave generously included B. Brown Melsungen, which provided $300,000 worth of surgical instruments. These expensive ventilators and anesthesia equipment, essential for everyday medical practice, were supplied by the Lübeck-based company Dräger AG. The first hospital in the region, Diospi Suyana now has a CT scanner. In one of the largest donations in its history, the Siemens Group provided this unit to the hospital. An exceptional act and another impressive demonstration of the wonders that abound in the realization of the vision of Diospi Suyana.
We are really pleased. I believe, like many others, that it's extremely important for this region that the hospital is equipped with this CT. I particularly like the motto, the most modern medicine for the poorest people.
For Diospi Suyana to make use of modern medical technology, its leaders need to remain in constant contact with several companies that, God willing, are able to support the Hospital of Faith. And the procedures of the protracted Peruvian bureaucracy are cumbersome and constantly changing, creating a lot of work for Dr. Klaus Jung. He spends 2 days a week 700 miles away in the capital Lima, where all the important decisions about Diospi Suyana are made. Taxi rides from A to B in this sprawling metropolis of 8 million inhabitants often take much longer than expected, and it's also a good way to catch up on lost sleep. Politicians, business partners, supporters. Klaus meets all of them regularly to maintain close contacts with key decision makers. In his wanderings through Lima, Klaus spent a long time desperately trying to find a sponsor who would supply an emergency generator for the hospital. This was particularly important as power cuts in Cotahuasi are a major problem. After 12 months of futile effort, Klaus finds a note in his wallet, which he had carried around for over 6 months, without paying much attention to it. On the note was written the address of the firm Diesel MTU. Klaus decides to make his way to the HQ of this company.
Then I started to pray spontaneously. God, please do a miracle. I've been trying for a whole year to solve this problem and it's all been in vain. I don't know what else to do. Please help me.
After giving his presentation to a sales representative of this company, Klaus was invited 2 weeks later to another appointment, this time with the president of MTU Diesel.
So I met the boss, a man of about 80 years of age. He'd been described to me as very unfriendly and abrasive. As I opened my laptop, I said to him, "You know, throughout my whole life, I've been asking myself the question of whether there really is a God, and this presentation is the answer." 4 days later, this old man called me up and said, "Dr. Jorn, we'll give you the generator. It will be brand new and will cost us $60,000. We've never done anything like this before, but after hearing your presentation, I felt I had to."
I donated the emergency generator very gladly. I think it was the best thing I could do this year, because it seemed sensible, and the generator will provide valuable assistance.
For Diospi Suyana, corporate donations of this kind are, of course, extremely valuable, but it is most of all individual contributions which safeguard the financing of this project.
The typical donors are ordinary people, workers and housewives who make various monthly contributions. We're very grateful to everyone who supports us.
About 50,000 people have donated over $14 million towards the financing of the Hospital of Faith, added to which more than $6 million have come from 180 companies from around the world. From the port of Hamburg, the ships, packed with containers of vital medical equipment, set sail bound for Lima. From there, they're loaded onto trucks and taken on a 2-day journey to Cotahuasi. Many of these costly transport operations were undertaken completely free of charge by the Peruvian company Neptunia. On earth, as it is in heaven, great hope for an almost forgotten people, the doctor with a direct line to God. These are just 3 of the countless headlines that have been written about Diospi Suyana. Meanwhile, the hospital has appeared more than 400 times in various TV reports and newspaper articles. In early 2010, the major German television broadcaster ZDF also made a special trip to Peru to cover the story. In November 2013, Deutsche Welle TV aired a detailed report in several languages worldwide. More than 50 million people have heard about the mission hospital through this worldwide media coverage. Even the former Peruvian president and his wife vigorously supported the project. On the 21st of April 2010, the leaders of all parties represented in the Peruvian parliament assembled to listen to Klaus give a detailed presentation on the work of Diospi Suyana. Just one day later, the parliament honored Klaus and Martina John with Peruvian citizenship in recognition for their work among the poorest people of Peru. Diospi Suyana is like a small city. The work goes on around the clock in every area of the hospital's activities. A laundry, a workshop and a large kitchen which provides food for patients and staff 3 times a day are all integrated into the daily routine work at the hospital. Even the homemade bread is baked in the German way. A total of 150 workers are currently employed at the hospital. 50 missionaries from around the world work alongside 110 Peruvians. The work environment is stimulating and is a great experience for everyone.
I really feel at home here, as if I'm part of a big family. We all work well together and have a lot of respect for each other. We work really well together with our local colleagues. They know the local language, Quechua, and we're more familiar with the technical side of things, so we all rely on each other.
Working here is a great honor and a great service. Through this work you strengthen your character and develop as a person. And it's also a challenge for me not only to develop as a professional, but most of all, to advance the work of the hospital.
In all areas of the hospital's work, there is a constant search for new employees. Diospi Suyana is especially reliant on the work and goodwill of missionary workers. There's a particular need for a growing spectrum of medical specialists and nursing staff, but people skilled in building and crafts are always welcome. Missionaries usually opt to work at the hospital on 3-year placements. However, shorter or longer stays are also possible. A 3-year stay in Peru at Diospi Suyana usually starts with a 6-month Spanish course. Occasionally, even entire families move to the Andes. A bold step, but one that offers a lot of opportunities.
I have to say that with children, it's a great opportunity to move to such a country. It's always easier for children to make new friendships, and they make contacts very quickly, even without knowing the local language.
The children of missionary workers are, of course, cared for at Diospi Suyana, but it's the care of the local children that is at the core of the project. The employees of Diospi Suyana set out on a unique journey, riding on a Unimog 4x4, driven by the intensive care specialist Michael Möhl. The journey leads through some muddy roads on the way to Cachora and lasts about 2 hours. In this hidden valley surrounded by the Andean mountains, Martina goes to check on 30 children in a remote orphanage. Singing, hearing a Bible story, and receiving a small gift are also part of every visit to the orphanage. In such poor communities, small gestures such as these can make a huge difference. Giving hope to the poor children of Peru. This is also a major part of what Diospi Suyana is all about. Out of this ethos, the Children's Club was launched. It offers a fun, creative and safe space for playing and learning. It all started with 15 children. Now it's attended by over 400 boys and girls week after week and comprises 11 different groups. In 2012, Diospi Suyana built the kids' house for the groups to meet in.
The children love to come here because they can have fun and enjoy themselves. We don't just read Bible stories, but talk about issues, about relationships and friendships that arise from these stories, such as not lying and not stealing. The children learn how to develop their creative talents with pens, paper and scissors. We recently had a games afternoon and we used a jigsaw puzzle, and we discovered that many of the children had never seen a jigsaw before. So we showed them and they learned how to do it with great interest and excitement. The children here aren't any less clever than other children, but are simply disadvantaged.
But that's not all that Diospi Suyana does for the local children. Under the expert supervision of Udo Clements, a new and modern school in the center of Cotahuasi was built to provide a good education for up to 600 children from 1st to 11th grade. The school is equipped with a sports hall as well as science labs, an IT centre, a library and a dining hall. And the children of missionaries can be taught here too. The construction of the school has been actively supported by the German foundation A Heart for Children and by many other charities and businesses. Companies from Europe and Peru donated, among other things, building and floor materials, the lamps, the tiles and equipment for the classrooms. These donations exceeded $600,000.
We maintain the vision that one day our students will leave our institution as strong personalities with hope in their hearts and Christian values. We want to enable these young men and women to use their knowledge and their talents to advance their families and society as a whole.
The ministry of Diospi Suyana in favor of the poor Peruvian population has become widely known. On May the 30th, 2014, the Peruvian president, Ollantaytamala, landed with his helicopter at the hospital. After a tour of the hospital, the president invited Martina and Klaus John, as well as Vice Director Dr. Jens Hasfeld, for a special audience to the government palace. This event with the president and his wife took place on June the 5th. This important meeting resulted in the president pledging full support to Diospi Suyana. Over the years, Diospi Suyana has faced many serious challenges, and many of these have been overcome. But there was one crucial challenge that remained a burning problem.
There hasn't been clean water in Corahuasi for many generations. The water used to stream down through channels, and it used to be infested with parasites. So the water had always been a problem for us. And I wondered if we could drill for fresh water. I decided to ask our old friend Guido del Castillo, who paid for the roof of the hospital, if he could help us again. He said, "Let's give it a go." And he had a team drill 50 meters into the ground. When they found water, he was prepared to pay to supply the hospital with water. And so he's invested at least $50,000 just in this project.
So we met him, and then we saw his tremendous personality, and we have become great friends, I think, and we appreciate tremendously the amount of work he put.
15,000 litres of fresh water an hour now spring from the underground source, enough to supply the entire hospital. The gratitude of patients is overwhelming. In June 2010, Peruvian TV featured a report about Maritza Paredes. Her rheumatism had become so extreme that she could no longer walk. No one could help her. In her desperation, she had a dream about being healed in a hospital built by foreigners, and that had a big church in the middle. At that time, she'd never heard of Diospi Suyana. Only her husband heard later about the Hospital of Faith and accompanied Maritza on the 8-hour journey to the hospital.
It was Jesus who led me here. The treatment and modern medicine that I received here took away my pain and relieved my suffering. Now I experience no pain and can walk again.
Perhaps there are some skeptics who will ask, is Diospi Suyana really a work of God? Or is it just the result of a lucky streak of inexplicable coincidences? Martina John is quite certain of the answer.
We have stood with our backs to the wall so many times and had no idea what to do. But then a solution would miraculously present itself. This gave us the firm belief that this is God's hospital and not ours. He is responsible for helping us further as the story of Diospi Suyana continues. I'm certain that God will never abandon this hospital.
Diospi Suyana is a sign that God can still work miracles today and that the impossible can become possible. I've already experienced so many miracles, which without God simply would not have been possible.
It is said that faith can move mountains. In this case, faith has built a hospital.
Diospi Suyana is a hospital that gives hope to the people who live here and which reminds them that Jesus loves them and hasn't forgotten about them.
Diospi Suyana is exactly what it means. It's a place for resting your soul and your body.
I've come here to Peru to be able to show the love of Jesus to the Peruvian people here through medicine. It's brilliant to be able to worship God alongside the patients that we're serving and then go on to assess their medical needs. Patients here present a lot later than they would do in England, and it's really exciting that they're finally getting treatment.
Diospi Suyana for me is a part of my life story and an incredible life-changing experience. For me, it's a great honor to work here.
For me, Diospi Suyana is a story about the way that God does miracles to transform people's lives.
For me and many others, Diospi Suyana has become a story of an encounter with God. Diospi Suyana means we trust in God, and the history that lies behind it demonstrates that this motto is no empty slogan.
When I first heard about Diospi Suyana, I couldn't really comprehend it. It was a huge project, right here in the mountains of Peru. It's almost unbelievable that a couple of doctors came to this place to realize their vision.
I've shed many tears of joy because of Diospi Suyana. I know the area well from my childhood. It made me think about how God made this possible out of His love for the people of this region. The story has really moved me.
The thing that inspires us is the belief that we should share with others the good things that God has given us, and that we should help people in whichever way God leads us.
We have come as medical volunteers from all over the world to serve our Lord Jesus Christ here at Hospital Diospi Suyana. What a privilege it is to serve the poor so that the name of Jesus Christ is glorified among all the nations. Jesus told us, whatever you do for the least of these, you do it as if you're doing it to me. What a blessing to be able to serve our Lord Jesus Christ as we serve the poor here in Peru.
It's wonderful to see the results of your labors. We're just so grateful to God for all the amazing miracles that He's worked here, which meant that we could become part of this incredible story.
In January 2002, a couple of German doctors, Martina and Klaus John, set out to realize their dream. The dream of a modern mission hospital in the Andes for the poorest people of Peru. A hospital built on faith in God. It seems as if this vision is now being realized. No one knows what fascinating plans God still has in store for His hospital. The story of Diospi Suyana has just begun.
Diospi Suyana is proof to me that God is alive.